This week on Curious City.
Remaining building from the Jane Addams homes. It's been around since it opened in 1938, and it is slated to become possibly the National Public Housing Museum.
Little Italy was a neighborhood founded by Italian immigrants in the 1850s on the near west side of Chicago. Most of the immigrants who came to this neighborhood were merchants and struggled to establish themselves under the restrictive laws and conditions of early Chicago. About 30 years after these immigrants had started to settle in the area, Jane Addams, who went on to become the first woman to earn the Nobel Peace Prize, and Ellen Gates Starr founded Hull House. This helped to reduce the community's poverty and desperation. Thanks to Hull House and Jane Addams' public housing communities, Little Italy is a culturally rich community that is a good place for families to live today. But all we have to remind us of Jane Addams and the work she did to help this community is Hull House itself and an old and structurally unsound building on Taylor Street. Even though no one would guess it by looking at this old boarded-up building, it holds some of Little Italy's most important history. What did this building do for this community? How did Jane Addams help Little Italy with it? And judging by the site of it, why hasn't it been torn down yet? These are some of the questions we're going to be asking to find out more about the history of this neighborhood and what Jane Addams' legacy is.
There were over 3,000 units of public housing. They were opened in 1938, were very well constructed. Between 1938, when Jane Addams was opened, and into the 1960s, the rest of ABLA was developed. So ABLA stands for Addams, Brooks, Loomis, and Abbott. Those were the four developments that consisted of the ABLA home. They were among the first public housing built in the United States.
The question...
Why did it deteriorate?
Yes.
Okay, so HUD in the 1980s in particular defunded public housing. And in Chicago that had a lot of negative consequences, and it resulted in a lack of routine and capital maintenance to keep the buildings in good condition. And there were also other consequences, such as drug dealers moving in and squatting in units that they did not have leases to be in and running drug trade out of there. And the developments became almost uninhabitable.
Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch, a former Addams resident, said other factors contributed to the home's decline. He said, by 1970 or so, the Chicago Housing Authority created new rules that pushed out some of the families that had parents with good-paying jobs. That left the poorest families concentrated together in public housing. Once the strongest families left, the poorest families had a lot of problems without stronger families to help as neighbors.
What was Jane Addams' legacy? Well, she affected the community by leading the immigrants who needed help finding their way in a new place and guiding them on the right path to settling in the city. What is this building on Taylor Street, and what does it mean? It is the last existing Jane Addams house, and it represents the way the community developed and became more stable through the help of Jane Addams. And why is it still standing? It is still standing because the National Public Housing Museum wants to restore it to its past state so they can make it into a museum where people can learn about Jane Addams' public housing project and how it helped this neighborhood prosper.
It can help people that live there become more educated. It can help the community grow and develop and allow its legacy to become richer. But it can have a dark side too. As the janitor said about the people in some housing developments, they call this the ABLA development. It's the ABLA settlement. It's a place to keep people out of the mainstream. The system really doesn't intend for these people to go anywhere. It's put them there and keep them there. These developments can be very dangerous to the residents. The effect of the Jane Addams ABLA housing in Little Italy was immense in culture and in education. These houses brought diversity and culture to the Little Italy community and were important to its legacy. These cultural centers have become eyesores, but with a little help, these housing units can be reinvigorated into the hub of the neighborhood and carry on Little Italy's legacy.
The National Public Housing Museum estimates it will take about $7 million to build out the museum and cultural facility.
These homes do a lot to prove that through the leadership of a single person, the entire community can be changed for the better. Thank you.
And how can this problem be solved? If we raise the necessary funds, then we can upkeep the building on Taylor Street. If we can turn this into the National Public Housing Museum, then people from all over can come to Little Italy to learn about Jane Addams public housing through her leadership and legacy.